Sports betting widely legalized and highly accessible through mobile apps. Participation is surging. What feels like entertainment, though, is increasingly tied to behavioral finance trends, emotional decision making, and direct backlash toward the athletes on court. Joining us now is Lawrence Sprung, founder of Midland Financial and the author of Financial Planning Made Personal. Good morning, Lawrence. Tell me more about the trends that we're seeing in sports betting.
Yeah, it's crazy. And we're in the midst of March Madness heading into the Sweet 16. And Americans are expected to legally wager $3.3 billion on the 2026 NCAA tournaments. That's a 54% increase over the past 3 years. And that highlights a rapid growth in participation. And, quite frankly, that gives me and should give others pause.
Yeah, what's driving these trends?
Yeah, I think one of the easiest thing is the phone. The thing that's keeping, staying with us at all times. Betting on your phone now makes it easy to act on impulse, and the apps are built. I mean, they're built with rewards, reminders, and live bets that are really behaviorally linked to keeping you hooked. And, just simply getting, oh, you almost won can push you to keep going.
So talk to me about the risks and potentially benefits of betting on sporting events.
Yeah, so I think there are some significant financial consequences that are coming out of the emergence of sports betting. And one of those is research from the National Bureau of Economic Research has shown that online sports betting is linked to lower savings, increased credit card debt, and more overdrafts, particularly amongst financially vulnerable households. So what that means is basically those who need to save the most potentially are doing harm to their savings because of the prolific availability of sports betting.
Yeah, and so before we look into potential solutions here, ways to change habits and get out of a situation that you might be in that you just described, this phenomenon is also impacting the athletes. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I mean, this is kind of crazy in this new era that we're in. The NCAA is reporting that harassment from people who are placing bets has become significant enough to launch a national awareness campaign. Charlie Baker, the NCAA commissioner, has publicly stated that student athletes are being harassed via threats, pressure tied directly to bets, and prediction markets related to their performance. So it's kind of crazy that now they're getting pressure because there's so much money at stake.
So much impact all around. Where do you place the blame for this surge?
Yeah, I mean, you could look at a lot of different avenues. And I think that, 10, 15, 20 years from now, we're going to see a lot of studies, a lot of the effects of allowing gambling to be so prolific. Obviously it's fairly new, but I don't know where you place the blame. But at the end of the day, we as people have to be educated, and we have to get that education out that people understand that this is not set up for you to win. If you're going to put a budget together for your family, I'm not saying don't bet at all. Some people find a lot of joy and find some joy in betting, and that's fine. But make sure that it's part of your budget that you can afford to lose. It's not like putting money in a savings account that no matter what's going to be there. Betting, most of the time the house wins. So that has to be part of your entertainment budget, and you have to be willing to spend that and be in a position to do that.
So you're almost advising a mindset shift that this is something you're just going to throw away for entertainment's sake. It's not a chance to gain more and earn more money, which a lot of people hope.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I'll give you a personal example. My father-in-law enjoys going to the casino. And I've told this story. I believe I even told it in my book. And what he does is he factors it in as part of his vacation. He puts an envelope of enough of whatever funds he's willing to gamble for that day. He puts it in an envelope for each day. Each day he opens the envelope. At the end of the day, whatever he has goes back in the envelope, and the next day he starts anew. So he knows exactly how much he could potentially lose during that vacation and that gambling experience. So he's put parameters and guardrails for himself, and that's really what we have to do. And you have to make sure that this is something you can afford to do to begin with, and then if you can, budget for it.
And there's got to be some digital ways of doing that too. That sounds like a very clear way to track the spending. But what about for people who really do have a habit of emotional spending or some other various forms of addictive spending, whether it's on betting or otherwise? How do you advise people to pull out of such a draw in their behavior?
Yeah, I think that's a difficult question, and I think that's probably the $10 million question, if you will. I think first and foremost, if you have an issue, there are a lot of resources, and you should seek help and guidance to help change those behaviors. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, and everybody is affected differently, but there are definitely certain triggers with regard to gambling, and if you need help, you should seek it. One thing that's made it prolific really is, like I said earlier, the phone. And first and foremost, if you know that you might have an issue, just delete all those apps so you're not getting any of those notifications. It's not available. You have to just put it in a position where you make it as hard as possible for you to get involved in the betting. But I think the most important piece is, if you feel like you have a propensity to have a problem, get the help that you need.
Lawrence Sprung, good to speak with you as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you.